Moment. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me and spending part of your Friday with me. I'm Greg Swartz. I'm the big man half of the big man Dram. This is the Dram half. And this week, well, I'll get to what that is in a moment, because the first thing I want to do is invite my guest in. This week, my guest is, we decided to go internal this week. This week's guest is my good friend, my business partner, and the producer of the film, and until like 2 weeks ago, my next door neighbor, Trevor Jones. So please welcome Trevor.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here. I have to say, I'm super glad after you've done, I don't know how many of these shows have you done?
I don't know. I've lost count, actually. I should know, but
1,000? Let's just say, for the sake of the joke I'm about to make, 1,000. You've had multiple producers on the show, on the Dram, on the podcast, and I feel blessed that finally I was invited after 1,000 episodes, 1,001. I get to be on it.
You know what, though? You're the only guest host we've ever had.
Ooh, guest host.
Yeah, you were the guest host when Jenna was on. Remember?
Oh,
one of the first
ones.
Right.
I was. You're right.
You're the only person I'll ever let drive the car.
Well, I'm glad just not to have crashed it off the side of a cliff.
Other people can ride in the car, but you got to drive the car.
I won't ever forget it.
Well, the cool thing is, it's funny. I just literally, right before we did this, I was writing in my journal here, my Water of Life branded journal. And I made this list. I was like, we have so much stuff going on right now. It's crazy. Yeah. And every day I have to make a new list, because if I don't, I forget things that are going on. But it's cool. It's all really good stuff.
Agreed. Very exciting.
And it's we're trying, people have probably heard me say this before, but we're trying really hard to pivot into a slightly more traditional distribution kind of model right now. And by say trying, I don't mean it's actually going very well. I'm just saying it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I see that one of the people who has joined us already in the chat is our good friend Udo, and I'm bringing Udo up for a reason. Hello, Udo. Because, for example, who knew that when we were going to go to a traditional streamer, one of the things I was going to have to do is submit the synopsis of the film that we use all the time, but I had to submit it in German as well, which thankfully Udo translated for me. There's all these little steps that I've never done it before. But I'm Keith Duncan. Hello, Keith. Thanks for joining us. Anyone else who's here, please, you can say hello. You can put a question in the chat, but we have stuff to tell you this week. What should we tell people first? There's three big things as far as I'm concerned.
And what are those three big things?
Well, then if I tell you, then I'm telling them. You know what all three are. Well, I'll tell you. Okay, so the one thing is, because we don't have graphics for the one thing, is it looks like in the coming months we're going to be streaming. We're going to do a screening nationwide on PBS,
which is so exciting. Which is
an enormous audience for us, and it's a very sort of whiskey friendly audience as well. And I'm very, very excited about that. And I feel
like if I can say so too, it feels like as new documentarians, it's like an important badge on the sash, the PBS badge.
Yeah, it's like one of the requirements. It's like in Boy Scouts, there's like elective badges, and then there's like the ones you have to get, like
exactly.
Canoeing. It's like the canoeing badge.
This is the canoeing through whiskey, yes, on PBS.
I see. James here is tasting Octomore 12s. I haven't even seen an Octomore 12 yet, except online, so I'm very jealous. I don't know that. I'm eager, especially looking forward to trying the 12.2, because I'm a big fan of the Comus, the old Octomore Comus 4.2, I think it was. And then Trevor and I were lucky enough to be at the last live in-person Feshiel at Brooklady with the Event Horizon, and we did that one that was called Comus Plus 10.
Amazing tasting that was. Amazing.
And so that people keep comparing this new 12.2 to it. But it hasn't made it to me yet. Well, Keith,
you got to pull those strings, Greg. You got to pull those strings. All those big connects you have.
I'm working on it. But one of the other two things that we have to share with people tonight are a bit more concrete than the first thing. Udo will join us with a 12-2 when it's there. Does that mean Udo has a 12-2? Does everyone have a 12-2 except me?
I don't have a 12-2, Greg, although my 12-2 is always just going to be yours that I help myself to from time to time.
Well, there's at least 3 people that have commented in the chat already that the 12-2 is amazing. And all I've seen is photos of it.
And the big man himself doesn't have one. Unacceptable.
Yeah. But here's what I do have. We have a couple of very exciting bottlings coming up, and I say a couple because one is let me hold on one second here. I'm going to share this because I'm going to do the simpler one first, and then we will here we go. I'm like I was saying earlier, I need a producer.
If only I had a producer.
Yeah. We are going to be we're doing with the whiskey, bourbon, and Scotch enthusiasts. We're doing a collaborative cask selection from Glenallachie, which we're very excited about. It's been something we've been working on for a long time. And this in a couple of weeks, we're doing our final event on a live roundtable on the WBSC on Saturday, October 30th. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is this whiskey right here. It's we're very excited about the whiskey itself and about Glenallachie in general. We don't have a price on this whiskey yet. It will be sold through a retailer in Delaware, and it will be sold. We'll have links and everything, and we'll start sharing that. And for people who are members of the WBSE Facebook group, there's actually going to be a tasting kit for sale where people can get a couple samples of Glenallachie, including this one.
So now's your time to sign up.
And it's funny. I've been told by Bill himself, not Billy Walker, Bill Varnell, both great Bills, just different ones.
On the list of great bills.
Up there with Shakespeare.
It's telling that you said Shakespeare and I said Shatner. I think it speaks a lot to who we are as people.
I'm trying to think about some other. I'm sure there's other great bills too. But okay. Anyway, my dad and grandfather are both Bills. My middle name is White. Yes, Keith Duncan. Sadly, it is going to be U.S. only. But hey, for what it's worth, Keith, there is absolutely a glut of single cask Glenallachie's all over the UK that I can't get. But this is going to be the last cask selection single cask release for Glenallachie for the year. It was hand selected by Billy Walker, and it's a PX cask finish, and there's the stuff Billy Walker does with wood is just something else, man. So we're really excited to be doing that. And there we go. Hi, I'm back to just being me and you now.
I'm excited about that too. When we spent time with Billy at the distillery, that was going through the warehouse with him was one of the most amazing experiences in the film, which was filled with incredible experiences.
Yeah. I always tell people that story about people. Yeah, Mark Pruitt, who is with us here today, actually asked me about this when we talked for the Whiskey Network magazine. One of my favorite moments from the shoot was I was standing out in the parking lot at Glenallachie while the lighting was going on, and you came to the door and opened the door of the warehouse, and I thought that there was a fire or someone was hurt or someone knocked over a cask of whiskey or something horrific. And I came over really quick, and you said, "You have to try this whiskey." But
it was amazing. I still remember that. It was just me and Billy, and I can't remember now. Someone else was in the warehouse with us, but he was
Richard Beatty.
Yeah, that's right. And he was pulling. We'd finished shooting in there. He was still pulling cask samples just for him to look at, and sort of he was there. I'm like, we'll do some work. And he tasted that one, and he goes, "Oh, this is ready for the bottle, I think." And then he asked me if I'd like a taste. And I had some, and I said to Billy, I said, would you mind? I have to go give some of this to Greg because this is unbelievable. And I should have just drank it all and told you about it, but
yeah, you should have. One of the things that amazes me about Glenallachie is Billy's only owned it for 4 years, so the stuff they're releasing isn't stuff he distilled yet.
Right.
Because I think every Glenallachie, and someone in the chat can tell me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure every Glenallachie is an age statement. There's nothing younger than the 10. I've seen 10s, and there's nothing younger than that. So there's not a single thing in the market, in the general marketplace, that he has distilled. But yet, what he's done with the cast finishes and stuff that they've done in those 4 years is just amazing. I mean, and they went from being, when we were editing, you remember downtown, David Keir from Glenallachie was in LA, and I told him to go to Remedy, and I said, tell them that they should carry your whiskey. And then when I went to Remedy the next time, I was talking to the guys there about it, and I said, you mark my words, they will be the talked about distillery a year or two from now. And I'm not, that makes it sound like I was like, I was right. But I mean, I just knew it is what it's not, that's not a testament to me. It's a testament to them. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was incredible. You could feel it being there, talking to them, and then also tasting the cask samples for sure.
Yeah, I got 2 bottles ready to drink drams today, and this is my next one. But I've got the other one poured already, so I'm not drinking this one yet. I should have probably started with this one.
I gotta get myself a bottle of that. I had some of that the other day.
When we were shooting, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I was like, wow, why do I not have this on my shelf? So good.
It's so good. I mean, the 12 is great too, but this 15 is I had like the 29 or 28-year-old one, and a different thing that David brought too. But the flavor per price balance of that one is just unbelievable. It's just amazing. Where it's not a $500 bottle, it's like a $100 bottle.
Right.
Mark Pruitt says the Glenallachie 15 is his favorite bottle of the year.
I gotta go get myself one.
And look, Udo says the same. See, it's a hell of a whiskey, but so is this one that we're going to do. It's 12. The cask we're doing is a 12-year-old, but the PX cask. And I know Bill Varnell is super excited. I saw he put in the chat how excited he was about it, and I also know he's a huge fan of Billy Walker's and of these. There he is. In general, so really looking forward to that one.
Me too.
Ever since we had we had a couple different samples when we were choosing casks with them. So it's we're 2 minutes early right now, but I'm going to bring in our special extra surprise guest because I can see he's ready. I hope he's ready. He can hear me, so he better be. We have another thing that we'd like to announce today as well, and so we're going to bring in. This is going to give it away a little bit. We're going to bring in our extra guest, Mr. Jason Three Names.
Hey, thank you,
Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hello, chaps. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic! Now that you're here, even better.
I get that a lot, to be honest, Trevor.
And by that he means empty platitudes.
Yeah, when you have a desk covered in cask samples, people tend to say nice things to your face, and I'm only here for the nice words, so I don't even care why they're saying it.
Well, I made a logistical mistake, Jason. I poured what we're about to talk about first, but we didn't bring you in first, so I haven't been able to drink it yet. And you know what? I'm afraid if you guys are going to have to forgive me for a moment, I'm about to have to switch my camera for a moment because my camera battery is about to die, and I'm going to switch camera to the lesser camera here.
Oh, look at that. Oh my God, the truth. It's the truth, Greg. Oh, no, not the truth. Put on the dishonest filter again. Come on. Oh.
It's funny. This camera that I use for my webcam has a plug, but I am far too lazy to ever actually plug it in. I just use batteries because they never die until today. So this is my little stopgap measure. I knew this was coming. I just didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. There we go.
Well, the first time we've said that in our lives.
Yeah. Did I vamp okay? Because I'm back.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, it's amazing.
Okay.
Seamless,
Back in
Greg.
all my-
Seamless.
In all my shallow
Like the
depth of
filmmaker
field
you
trip.
are.
Trevor and
Well,
I
now-
did not notice.
Well, before we talk about this, actually, no, we're not talking about this. What am I saying? This, by the way,
we're just enjoying this. Yeah.
This is the Stones of Stennes.
Yeah.
This is the bottle we did as a collaboration with the Single Cask Nation with our friends there. My camera won't focus on it. Now it will. There we go.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Look at that. Yeah. Now back to me. But that will soon only be known as our first collaboration. Not the collaboration, but rather our first collaboration.
Indeed.
Because today we are talking about, I'm excited. I'm excited to show this. Here's our first ever public appearance. There we go. We are doing another bottling. And this is, it occurred to me, Trevor, we've never named this sheep.
I think that'd be fun.
I'm down for that for sure. Here's some data on that bottle if you like. I've got a couple of really beautiful photos to share of it because I don't actually physically have the bottle yet.
Yep.
And Jason, would you care to tell the world a little bit about this bottle, or would you like me to?
It's funny, you asked me the same question with the Stones of Stennes, and I said, well, I know what I think about it. I would love to hear you. So do you want to give your recollection and then I can add on to that? Or were you just being polite? You were like, I don't want to take any of this.
Well, no, actually, the first thing we should talk about is some of the data points, which is, it is from an undisclosed island distillery.
Mm-hmm.
It's 48.8% ABV.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a single cask, correct?
Correct. It's the one moment when we run into a little problem with our name. When we came up with Single Cask Nation, we thought, well, we'll be able to do rum, we'll be able to do sherry, like we've got room to go here. We're not just Single Whiskey Cask Nation, but we never really thought there would be reason for us to do small batches. And so in the time that we've done small batches, we're still Single Cask Nation. And so we always say they're small batches made up from a series of single casks, which is the height of truisms.
Yeah.
Do you know what that just reminded me of? The other day, my wife and kids and I were doing this trivia challenge online. And one of the questions was, which of the following countries has the most time zones around the world? And it was like, I forget what the choices were, but it was a trick question because the answer was France, because France considers its territories as part of its official territory and therefore has the most time zones of any country on earth. Yeah. So they're stretching the logic to get the trivia points.
Yeah. At this point, I would say something like typical French, but you would never want to say that on a podcast that's being broadcast globally. So we definitely will not say that.
Especially because I know at least one Frenchman is currently watching us because he's actually said hello.
I love the French. The Old Alliance with Scotland.
There we go. At least he was until a moment ago. There he is. Ness. Ness will weigh in momentarily, I'm sure.
See, first name Ness. There's a reason I couldn't see him in the comments.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm here all week.
So, one of the things that I really loved about this cask this whiskey, this vatting of casks when we tasted it, was first of all, it's a very balanced whiskey. It's been a few months since I tried it, I loved how it had a lot going on, but all in this beautiful balance. And I really, really like there's a malt character to it that I don't think is swamped in anything else, and that really jumped out for me.
Well, the thing is, and I know we talk carefully about this bottling because it is undisclosed. And internally, I've only been referring to this as Wolf Island. And the fact that we went with a sheep on the front of a bottle called Wolf Island just makes me smile every single time I see the bottle. I'll also show you, this was a little sample that I put to the side for myself, and I got to work out the StreamYard opposite world here. But
it's tricky.
Wolf R. And so obviously we did Wolf O, which was the Stones of Stenness that you showed, the 17-year-old sherried peated Orkney whiskey. This Wolf R, again, with the conversations that you and I have had, Greg, there's a flavor profile that I think really sings and really works for you. And when it came to Wolf Island, there are some characteristics that really work and really sing for me. And so all 6 casks in here are first fill bourbon casks. So when you talk about the malt character really shines through, for me, that's partly the work of the first fill bourbon, right? Is that sherry will come in, and I love sherry matured whiskies, but it can have a hell of a presence, right? Where, boy, is it delicious, but it's dark chocolate and dark fruits and rich fruits and dried fruits and fruit cake and Christmas cake, right? It brings a lot of things to the party. I like the fact that first fill bourbon will bring you a wood character. It'll bring you some of that corn or caramel or warm butter from the bourbon, but it will also let the single malt speak. And I think the single malt from this particular distillery resonates in first fill bourbon. So I was really excited with this. I can freely tell people that it's 5 casks of unpeated malt and 1 cask of peated malt. And sometimes you find that bringing in another component just allows a certain framework to play with the other components. And when we tasted it without the peat, we really liked it, and it really sang. But when we then played around with a peated component, it added a frame that we thought heightened the unpeated component of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you get a lot of times, and I didn't get it all from this one, was I love ex-bourbon casks. And they're, well, it depends on my mood. I like all whiskeys. But I do love ex-bourbon casks. But sometimes you get too much, a little, for my taste, you get a little too much of the vanilla kick. And I love vanilla, but sometimes you get more than you want. But this doesn't at all. And this almost feels like it doesn't taste like a chili, but a well-made chili doesn't have to be super smoky. It can just have little hints of it, And there was an old restaurant in Burbank that used to have this vegetarian chili with okra in it, and they would smoke the okra, and it was so good.
Oh my gosh!
It's weird to compare it to that because this doesn't taste like okra chili. This whiskey is nothing like okra chili.
That does sound amazing, though.
We have a couple questions coming through. One of them is only Jason can answer, which is, will this be US or also sold in Europe? I believe this is US only.
This is 100% US only. And I will say, watch this space. This particular release is only the US. And the label says 1,600 bottles from this vatting of 6 casks. It's so funny. I was talking to Joshua before I came on here to tell him I was coming on to talk about this bottling. And in talking to him, I accidentally used the name of the distillery, which, as we put this together and as we designed the label, all of our internal conversations with you chaps, Greg and Trevor, and the team, was we must not use the distillery name. And so as I'm describing it, as I'm waxing lyrical, I've got this pause, I've got this hitch in my giddy up where I'm just being so safe that I'm not saying the distillery name. So my apologies that I've got the hitchy-magiddy up today.
No, I think we should just keep you talking until you slip.
Oh my God, I so don't want to say the distillery name. But let me say this. The fact that it was an island really, it meant that I wanted to communicate any hint of salt, any hint of citrus, any hint of that peat, right? We haven't come out with an Isla. It would have, I think fit quite naturally to do an Isla with Water of Life film and what you've done with Bruichladdich on Isla and all that. But I also like the fact that we get to put our own spin on this. And I love the fact that there's still a coastal element. There's still, craggy element to this. The cliffs are still in there. So I'm really confident with what we've put together. I know that what you chaps tasted resonated with you as well, and we were able to press ahead with the collaboration. Yeah. I'm looking at my empty bottle of it and thinking, yeah, I really did enjoy that. It was a really good time. It went well.
Yeah, it's when we did these first two cask samples, Trevor and I tasted them together. Remember when Trevor used to be my next door neighbor? We tasted them out back.
I remember that well
before he abandoned me.
Yep.
And this actually, I really have grown to love them both. But this was the one. This new one was the one that really kind of popped for me.
Yeah.
More. That being said, you don't need any more evidence than this that the Stones of Stennes is virtually empty here. And
you've been enjoying that.
I have. We have a question from Mark Pruitt that he says, I'll throw it up and then I'll read it. I'm going to ask a dumb maybe question. Is there a hard, fast rule on charring level when something is called a first fill bourbon cask? No, there's different levels of char.
Yeah.
And
the thing that sorry, Greg.
No, go ahead.
Just the thing that I always say about us in Scotland, actually, I just ran a tasting last week where I made fun of this, is if you see first fill bourbon cask and you see first fill sherry cask, for us in Scotland, it's almost like our friends in Spain don't exist and our friends in America don't exist, right? At best, we're really appreciative that the Americans took the time to season our casks with bourbon before they sent it to Scotland, and that our Spanish friends took the time to season with sherry before they sent it off to Scotland. We think that's part of a really a much larger relationship. So I've even seen it, Mark, where in a warehouse they've got Tennessee whiskey and they're still pitching it as bourbon. And as I grew up pronouncing it in Scotland, and my friends in Scotland still say it, bourbon, right? We're drinking bourbon over there, and we're using bourbon casks. And so, no, nobody's getting onto what the charring level is when we're going to call it first fill bourbon. The important thing for us is that we're using it for the first time. Then second time for your second fill, and then your refill is your third, your fourth, your fifth time of using it. So honestly, the charring isn't really coming into it. Gosh, Bill Lumsden just made the joke on, not to crash the party, but on our podcast, One Nation Under Whiskey, where we have Greg as a guest. Bill Lumsden on there talked about this new Scotch release where the marketing department came up with dragon char. And it's just, his words, nonsense. Right? It's just nonsense streamed up in a marketing department. So charring levels isn't entering into the equation for us, but we appreciate our friends in America and Spain doing good work for us.
It's funny because as much as the char level obviously impacts what the wood will offer, the other thing that I think, especially with sherry casks, is most of my favorite sherried whiskeys come from second fill sherry casks because otherwise I think the sherry tends to can easily swamp the whiskey otherwise. But if it's on its second or third time around, you get more out of less. And I think that's kind of what Gordon MacPhail is really good at doing. Is finding a cask that has a lot to offer, but not too much to offer. And that's how they do the 80-year-old whiskey.
Yeah, well, and I think you raise a good point here is that we use things like first fill, second fill, refill as if they're hard and fast terms. And really all they speak to is the fill. They don't speak to the life that the cask has led that's brought them to that fill. So you could have a refill cask, and you would never really do this because the money doesn't make sense, but you could have a refill cask where your first fill was just a 6-month finish, and your second fill was another 6-month finish. You've used it for a year. It's now a refill cask, but it's still really lively. It kind of makes a mockery of the terms that we're throwing around. But the one that I just thought of a second ago, and I agree with you, I like second fill because it gives the spirit room to breathe. But we brought in a US retail release of an Altmore 30-year-old that had spent all 30 years in first fill sherry. And the first thing you notice about that dram is that the spirit still shines through. It's still Altmore spirit at the heart of that. And we didn't expect that when we got the sample. We really thought it was going to be a sherry bomb after 30 years in first fill sherry. But again, it goes to show not all casks are created equally. And so who knows the life that, right. And so, what kind of life did it lead in Spain before it came to Scotland 30 some years ago to be used to mature that Altmore?
Jason, do you know Blair Bowman?
Yeah.
Oh, so Blair, is in our film. He's a friend of the film, and he writes a column monthly for Scottish Field, and his column came out the other day. I was absolutely blown away by it. I never saw drinking the liquid history of Scotland. I get that, and it's not just poetic. It's true. You really are literally doing it. But he talked about getting to drink the 80-year-old Glenlivet that Gordon and MacPhail just released, and there were 2 facts in there that were amazing. That cask was distilled 3 months after World War II had begun, and this is the one that really blew me away. The cask it was in was a sherry cask that the tree was felled. When the tree was felled in Spain, Queen Victoria was the queen. And that because it was the sherry it was in was so long aged in sherry before it made its way to Scotland that is a Victorian tree, and he was drinking the results of that 2 weeks ago.
Amazing. It's insane, isn't it? Like we talk all the time about the historical context that surrounds whiskey, and while the spirit is important and the quality of the drinking experience is important, I always think about the people who made it. And I think about the times in which they were making it. And now, as we move into 2021, and I get a little bit older, that history is something I've lived through, right? It's harder now getting those bottles from the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, right? Before I was born. And if you can get them, they're crazy expensive. But I was lucky enough in 2011, 2012, I got to taste the 1953 Glenfarclas that was put out by Wealth Solutions along with Master of Malt. And the first thing I did when I saw that I'd received a sample of that was I went straight to Wikipedia and looked up 1953. What was happening in the pop charts, what was happening in theaters, what was happening politically. And then at the same time, my mum was 9 years old. My dad was 12, like on the verge of becoming a teenager. Like it's mental to think about the world in which that was produced. Then you've got a fantastic whiskey in your hands, but that historical context is so important and so much a part of the experience for me that I love hearing this about the 80-year-old.
I agree, and I think that's when we were at Gordon and MacPhail, we were lucky enough to try the Mortlock. How old is that?
75.
Oh, was it?
Okay. Both. They had done both. They had released the 70 and the 75, but they gave us the Drams at 75.
And so we tasted it, and that's the thing that occurred to me, especially at a place like Gordon and MacPhail, where it's been passed from parent to child to parent to child to nephew to cousin, that the spirit that's whiskey we were drinking had passed through entire generations of that family, that never saw it or tasted it. And that was amazing to me, because it's not just, for me, it's not just the when it was made but like the time that it existed and has passed through, whatever it's become from what it was, is that 75 was something, it was an experience that I shared with the people at Mortlock who distilled it around the Second World War, whose children may have then gone off to war. There's like so many human connections to that time, that spirit existed in that barrel, just sitting in that warehouse, the way the world rotated around that whiskey, that it's magical, I think. And it's special in a way that I don't know is special with a lot of other spirits. And it's something I think about all the time. I mean, and now in the 21st century, 3-year-old whiskey has been through enough world time that it's from another era,
Well, but imagine being the family member who said, "Should we bottle it at 40?" Like,
right.
No, 50. You want to bottle it? No. Like, who leaves it in the cask for 80 years and knows enough to leave it for the next generation? Like, I'm going to butcher it, but I think about it often. Like it's the good person who plants the tree to be the shade of people he'll never meet. Right? Like, and that's laying down whiskey, and that's leaving whiskey in oak, is to say, I'm not going to be the person selling this. I'm not going to be the person making the money off the back of this. Like, it's going to go on down the line. Like,
not only that, not only am I not going to reap the benefit, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for this and invest in this for my grandkids to, at one point, share this with a documentary crew.
What's a documentary crew, right?
Yeah,
like, that hasn't even been invented yet.
Totally right.
Yeah. It's on Instagram. What? One of the things that's amazing.
I mean,
about
for what it's
Gordon
worth, this was made before Instagram.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
What, 2000 and something?
17. So yeah, 2003. So yeah. That's pre YouTube, right?
Yeah.
We're so old. Do you remember when?
One of the things that amazes me about Gordon MacPhail is how much they have some kind of ability to age whiskey. I know that last year they briefly were not the oldest whiskey commercially sold. Macallan was, but there was that whole thing where Macallan had bought all these casks back of Macallan from Gordon MacPhail, and I've always wondered, was like, did they just buy their own cask back so they could release it as their own, and it's actually a Gordon MacPhail aged whiskey? I don't know. I assume it is, because I assume Gordon MacPhail willfully surrendered the oldest whiskey in the world, only to kind of turn around and crack their knuckles and
that's fine.
Redo it again a year later.
Can you imagine, hold my 80-year-old whiskey. Like, here I come. No, it's serious. It's serious business. It's remarkable to me, the foresight that has been put in place. And it is interesting when you talk about when Gordon MacPhail can sell back to Macallan, and was it Douglas Lang who were selling back to Diageo, where you've got independent bottlers who don't have shareholders who are able to lay down stocks in a way that those with shareholders are not able to lay them down. When you've got shareholders and you're showing annual profits, I think it really changes how you sell your whiskey, how you bottle your whiskey, how you mature your whiskey. But if you're a privately held independent bottler, you can lay things down. You can sit on things and see where the market goes in 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years. It's really remarkable to think about, the freedom that allows you.
Yeah, certainly. And it would affect your decision-making process if you were the CEO at 75 years. Like, you know what, this good now. Let's not wait another 5 years.
You're breaking up, Trevor.
Yeah, say that again, Trevor.
Yeah, you're frozen, Trevor.
Am I still frozen?
You're You're roboting again.
You'll be back. I've got great faith in you.
Yeah, you're totally frozen. If you want to leave and come back in, I'll let you back in. Oh, he did. He took me up on it.
I just turned off my camera for a minute to let my internet catch up.
There we go. I'll switch the view.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have any dead bodies in the corner of my office there. Suddenly the whole thing got opened up.
Jason, Trevor's still frozen.
Yeah, there's issues there for sure.
I'm just glad they're not mine. Oh, he left. Now, so Jason, one of the things we didn't say yet is, I know we don't know exactly when this is going to go on sale just yet, but this is going to be. I should have explained this because I get so excited about the whiskey, I don't talk about the logistics. This is a retail bottling. This isn't going to be sold on our website or on the Single Cask Nation's website. This is going to be sold at retailers around the country.
Exactly.
You can maybe expand on that for a little if you.
Yeah, for sure. And so people ask us this all the time about Single Cask Nation. So we've got Single Cask Nation online, where we do online releases. You buy online and we're able to ship it to your doorstep through a retailer partner. This is retail. And so what you'll want to do is go to the singlecasknation.com website. Yeah, welcome, Trevor. You'll be able to see the states in which we have distribution. And then it's on the distributors to place the orders for these bottles. But as we always say, if you are in the US and you've got a favorite store that you go to, ask them about this Water of Life film collaboration. It's imported through Impex. And so, again, if you've gone to the website, you'll know which distributor to tell your retailer to reach out to. Encourage them to bring in the bottle. You're probably going to see it in California very soon. And again, we're on to logistics. My hope is you'll see it at least by the beginning of November. That would be really wonderful. So that's in California. Then it's got to start going east. We talked about the historical context that we're all living in right now. Logistics, taking cases from the West Coast to the East Coast is incredibly difficult. Bringing in cases from Scotland to the West Coast is incredibly difficult. But if you've got a relationship with a favorite retailer, definitely let them know your interest in this, and they'll be able to reach out to distributors, place orders, and bring it in. As I said earlier, there's 1,600 bottles across the United States. As you guys were saying early on in today's episode, once you appear on PBS, right, that's going to be a difference maker, right? We've already got whiskey groups who know about this, who know about you guys, who know about your production, who know about the film. Grab your bottles before people who learn about it through PBS grab their bottles. So you're on the inner circle right now. You've done the heavy lifting. And so make sure you get your bottles. Was that vague enough while talking for a while?
Absolutely. I'm singlecasknation.com is a good starting point. So I'm putting that up there as the our little banner. I put it in the chat already.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's funny. My brain can't. Was it Carl Sagan who said that the universe is not only bigger than you think it is, it's bigger than you can think it is?
Potentially, well, or you quoted it to me saying, "Is it Carl Sagan who said?" And I remember Carl Sagan.
Yeah, I say that a lot because
it's true.
This is one of those examples. Our film, I don't know how many thousand people have seen our film. I don't honestly know off the top of my head. Trevor might know. Probably, let's just say 4,000. When you say it's somewhere in there, 4,000 or 5,000, it's hard to say because we've done so many events where there'll be multiple people in a room online, and I don't know how many people are in the room.
Mm-hmm. Right. Udo alone has seen the movie 9 times. So,
hey, if Keith Duncan's still here, he can tell us. Keith Duncan, the other day, told me he thinks he's seen it 12 times. I think he's the winner. Oh, other than me, I am the winner. I've seen it 378 times. But
people don't know this about Greg, but every afternoon he just drinks whiskey and watches the movie over and over again.
I'm watching it right now on the other end.
That's why he needs the serious filter on his camera. Once we got that peek behind the curtain earlier, it was too much.
So you can't see the reflection of the movie in his eyes. It's actually playing on the screen.
The amount of people that watch PBS every week was it 63 million? They have 63 million viewers a week. I mean, the numbers don't. That's the part of my brain that can't wrap around the difference between, say, 4 or 5 or 6,000. Let's say 10,000 and 63 million. I just, the audience is amazing, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully people can get a bottle of this. I can't believe we never named the sheep, but I do like the idea of calling it Fonz.
What else would you name the sheep?
If anyone who's seen the movie, you see some shots in the film of Jim McEwen. I'm not going to ruin anything here if you haven't seen it, but you see Jim McEwen on a hike. That was the very first day we shot. We were hiking on Isla, and we have some beautiful, Alphonse shot absolutely gorgeous drone shots of Jim on these cliffs on the far western edge of Isla. And across the there's a little inlet, and across the inlet on this other like steep hill, there's all these sheep standing there. And I just this is like the day I met Jim, or maybe the second time I'd met Jim. I said, "Do you think those sheep ever fall off?" And he looked and he said, "I've never thought about that before. I've been hiking here my entire life, and now I'm going to think that every single time I hike here." And he said, "I've never seen one fall off, but you have to wonder. It's a pretty steep hill." And every time I see the sheep model in this, that's what I think of. This is like our homage to the sheep who died.
Yeah, true. There are a lot of sheep.
A fallen comrade.
Rest in wool.
Well, I have to tell you, I know I'm only a sneaky guest on this, but the collaboration with all of you, the whole team, was an absolute pleasure. The first one that we released online that sold out real fast, and it was limited to one per person. That was a magnificent collaboration. Moving on to Wolf Island has been fantastic. I did plant a flag earlier that I hope we get to collaborate again in the future and include other markets if people are watching the film in other markets. But yeah, hanging out with you guys is a pleasure. Drinking with you guys and collaborating on whiskey is a blast. And so I just continue to wish you success. You're good blokes, and I think good things happen to good blokes.
Well,
and good lassies. I'll throw that in as well.
I will say back at you that when Greg and I first started talking about this film, and we first started talking about sharing it with people, one of the things that was the most important to us about how we were going to share it was that we would be able to share it with people in person with a dram. And then world events made that impossible for a super long time. But being able to partner with you guys and do these bottlings, and then be able to, even if people are watching it remote, like the three of us here in different parts of the world, I don't know if we're all having the same dram, but having a shared experience, and talking about the film is I think it's a fulfillment of our original intention and how we wanted to make this film. And so, we couldn't have succeeded in the way we did without this partnership. And so I personally hope that we can do many, many more.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I second that. We've actually got a label. It wasn't on this one because we put your logo where we normally put the other logo, but we have a logo that's Spirit of Collaboration since 2011. And the most fun we have in this company is when we collaborate. And so getting to do this type of collaboration with your team has just been absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So thank you for inviting us into it. And if I can plug next week, I'm leaving now, you guys are continuing.
Of course.
But Jess Lomans, you'll get to hear from our global sales manager who's based in Glasgow. And so please tune in for Jess Lomas, and she'll talk all things Single Cask Nation and whiskey and anything else you want to know. She's a wonderful
Yes.
soul.
Well, you just saved me having to do a plug. But I couldn't do it better. But before you go, Jason, we're actually finished ourselves. But I will say one thing I wanted to say. I never mentioned this earlier because I'm not very strategic in my ramblings. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk about the why of this whiskey, because we always talk about why the Stones of Stenness, and I'll tell you the thing that really spoke to me about this whiskey is because it's an undisclosed distillery, first of all, and secondly, it's not a distillery that's in our film. But what it is this is a big thing in our film, is it is a perfect example of the creativity of independent bottlers that are able and willing and creative enough to do things that no one else is doing. And for you guys to have taken 5 different casks that are ex-bourbon casks, and one of them is peated and 4 of them are not, that's amazing. And there's a spirit of why not to that I think is awesome. And I love that. I love that in across the industry when people do that kind of like, well, let's try this and why not? And and I just that's what and the cool thing is that doesn't work if that's a cool experiment but the whiskey tastes like crap.
Correct.
They have to kind of rise in sync, and so I love the whiskey. I love the idea behind it. I love the why notness of it. I love independent bottlers dragging the industry forward creatively.
Okay.
I used to be a little bit more charitable about that and say, oh, the big distilleries kind of use independent bottlers as their research and development departments. But I actually think the independent bottlers, they're dragging the rest of it. They're the guy who's dragging the boat forward,
I think you're correct. If I can add on to what you said there as well, I think there's a moment in your film, and I apologize, I've only seen it 3 times, so I feel like I'm really lax today.
Yeah.
But I know that when Mark and Jim and Duncan and the guys at Bruichladdich, and even Billy's run into this with Glenallachie as well, when you take over a distillery, you're trying to get people to taste that liquid free from bias, right? If you thought of something of Bruichladdich before, or if you thought something of Glenallachie before, they want you to just come in and taste it. And you said this, I was still off camera at the time, but you talked about what Billy has done with Glenallachie and those wood finishes. He hasn't distilled, we don't have anything in the market that was distilled by Billy yet, but what he's done with wood is amazing and fantastic. If you're Billy Walker going into the marketplace, you want people to taste Glenallachie with a clean slate. And for us, in putting together a larger retail bottling in collaboration with Water of Life Film, I just want people to bring their palates to that. Give this a taste. See what you think of it. And I think taste is so important and so key. And we've moved away from it. The big branding dollars want you to be with one distillery and one distillery only. And I think that's a strength of independent bottlers, is we don't make our money off the back of one distillery. We make our money off tens of distilleries. That's where you meet the consumer, is with multiple different distilleries. And so, here's this single malt representing a single distillery that remains unnamed. Just come and tell us if you like it or not. Just see if it tastes good. And we, collective, think it does.
I couldn't agree more.
We tend to end our conversations like that. We tend to agree.
on a bon accord.
I like it. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate you having me in today.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're very excited, and we're really excited to do both of these bottlings. And that reminds me, before we go, I'm going to post one more thing in the chat here, which is a link for people who want to order the Glenallachie tasting kit. You must be a member of the Whiskey, Bourbon, and Scotch Enthusiast Facebook group. But there's a link in the chat. So there's very limited amounts of those. So on that note, have a good Friday afternoon. I've just had 2 whiskeys and it's not even 2:00 yet. So my Friday's shaping up nice.
I'm off to collect my kid from cross country practice. So I only had one very small taste.
Well, I moved on kind of unspoken back to the Glenallachie 15. So
nice.
This is my second dram. So
we drink on Scotland time, though. I think that's the only way to do it with this film.
That's only fair. Only fair. Cool.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And have a good weekend. See you next week when we have Jess Lomas. Slanch guys.
Slanch.